So you actually put that into a bank and it earns something. That's that yield. And sometimes if you're calculating an option value on an index, individual stocks, they pay dividends in discrete intervals. But in an index, I'm not going to worry about timing of 500 different dividend payments and how is that going to affect the index. You figure out what's the average dividend yield of the index, and you use that. It's as if it's a currency. Okay. If you don't do anything with it, it earns something. In the case of an index, the individual stocks in the index earn dividends, and that's pretty much it. But that's an optional argument. If you leave it blank, it assumes it's zero. Another optional argument, it's called I call. It's a Boolean argument. Boolean is named after a scientist named Boole. It's basically takes on only two values, on or off, okay? Or in this case, true or false. The entire computing architecture is based on, Boolean algebra. And the last argument is IFREC. That's for compounding. Again, if you're using an interest rate that is a 3-month quarterly APR, just leave that in. But if you leave it blank, it assumes it's 1. All right? These are all the comments. Basically, it explains exactly what those arguments are. These are my local variables. It may not be a bad idea to say, okay, that little single quote doesn't have to be in the beginning of the line. As soon as there is a single quote, VBA stops executing anything beyond that on that line. Okay. So I'm basically saying time. I'm going to use this basically to calculate time to expiration, so on and so forth. Then I make those calculations. This kind of makes my life easy. And we just put them together. And the only thing we do is, if I call equals false, that means I'm doing a put option. I'm changing the NOR D1s into 1 minus NOR D1s. Remember, in the put option, you have minus D1 and minus D2. But since normal distribution is symmetrical, I don't have to recalculate it. If I have N of D1, N of negative D1 is 1 minus N of D1. That comes from the symmetry. This is the so-called present value of the spot. That only matters if the asset yield is actually not zero. So if you're pricing an option on the value of, let's say, British pounds, right? British pound has a yield. So you actually discount the spot price using pounds discount rate. This one calculates present value of strike using dollars discount rate. Then all I have to do is put in the numbers. And I checked, they work just fine. I discovered what I was doing last time. I was making a mistake with respect to present value of the strike. And that threw off the calculations for puts. I also put this in. In fact, I'm not even going to use this one, so let's get rid of that. This is a function, I call it Black-Scholes Euro Delta. The only thing this does, it calculates the change in the value of one contract when the underlying price changes by 1 cent. Except for stocks that are trading under $1, the minimum price movement is 1 cent anyway. So technically speaking, the delta refers to an extremely small change, or the rate of change for an extremely small change. But I'm not going to worry about that. And for symmetry purposes, I actually calculate the price at spot plus 1 cent Then I compare it to the price spot minus 1 cent. And normally I divide the whole thing by 2 because I move by 2 cents between them. But I multiplied by 50 because I was going to multiply the whole thing by 100 to tell me the change in the value of the contract. Remember, the price we're calculating is the price per share, but option contracts have multiples of 100 in them. So that's how I'm going to kind of see the delta. Something is going wrong there. Okay, let's go back to this one. Basically, on my left-hand formula, I'm entering all the inputs to Black-Scholes euro. Since I put them in order, D5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I put asset yield explicitly 0. But if we were doing this for pounds, in fact, I'm going to use that as an example. We could have done that. And what else did it say? Okay. And the option, the argument for I call, that depends on whether or not this little cell is equal to 1. Because I set it up so that it could take only 1 or minus 1. If it's 1, that's a call option. You have the check mark. If it's 0, it has the put option. The last argument is IFREC because I'm using the effective annual rates. But if I was using shorter rates, I would have used the APR. For example, if I want to put, all I have to do is change that last argument to red light or red cross. Okay. All right. Chi, that's X is named after the Greek letter chi. And as you know, chi is the first letter for Christ. In fact, you see some old amulets that are in the shape of a chi and a rho. Okay. You know, chi and rho are the first 2 letters of Christ in Greek. And if you wanted to use this to figure out what the implied volatility is, all you have to do is, I'm going to change my unknown to volatility. Okay, the market is open, so let's actually make use of that. What's going on with my... Okay, let me stop this Zoom business. It's creating issues. Let's look at Robinhood. I'm going to use, let me see. Let's do options on Palantir Technologies. Current price is 23. Let's look at an option that's going to expire next Friday, where the hour stuff becomes important. Let's look at 23 call, okay? The stock is trading at 22.75. So my spot is 22.75. Strike is 23. That's the expiration date. I'm going to figure out about volatility. What I call cost of carry is basically the interest rate for the domestic currency. I'm going to use 5 for short term. There is no asset yield. So if the volatility is 40%, this option should be trading at 70 cents, all right? But it is trading at yeah, something really weird going on. It's trading at 87 cents right now. Of course, the underlying price changed, but let's make that 0.85 when we first looked at it, all right? When this setup mode light is red, changing the value for this fair value thing doesn't change anything, but if I double click on that, I go into solar mode. That is actually the market value, okay? You enter that manually. Ideally, you would have a data link that's going to feed into that cell. As price changes, it's going to change the implied volatility automatically.